Okay guys, so today we're starting on 3-1, day 1, lines and planes. Our goal for today is to describe the following vocabulary words: parallel lines, skew lines, and parallel planes. Very first thing, there's a couple definitions that we need to know. First one, parallel lines. Parallel lines are just lines with the same slope. Something important to know about them is that they never cross each other. A way to write it is just like how I wrote it off on the right. AB, these two lines next to each other like this, it just means parallel. So AB is parallel to CD. So let's take a look at our picture really quickly. I have AB right here, and I have CD right here. As we can see, they never touch each other, so that's how we're able to say that those are parallel. The next one that's important to know is skewed lines. Now these ones might be new for us. Skew lines are lines that do not intersect and are not parallel. So they never cross. They're just kind of like in two different spaces. So an example would be in our picture, CG and HF. So I'm going to look. I have CG right here. I have HF right here. As you can see, they're not parallel, they're not going in the same direction, but if the lines continued on for forever, they're never actually going to touch each other. So that's why we're going to call those skew. The next one, we have perpendicular lines. Those are lines with opposite reciprocal slopes. Opposite reciprocal just means you take your slope, so the fraction, you flip it upside down, and you put a negative sign in front of it. If it's already negative, change it into a positive. But you've already learned that before. Another interesting fact about perpendicular lines are they make 90-degree angles. So in our picture, I said that DH is perpendicular, so that little symbol right here means perpendicular. So DH is perpendicular to HG. So I'm looking over here, I have DH, I have HG. As you can see, we have that little square right there. That tells me that that's a 90-degree angle, so that means they have to be perpendicular to each other. Next one, very last one, parallel planes. Just like lines, they do not intersect. They're just two planes that just run next to each other. They never touch. So in our picture, we have plane CAB and plane GEF. As you can see, they're never going to touch each other. They just continue on forever next to each other, so that's why we're able to call those parallel planes. Okay, now that we got through all of our vocab, we're going to look through some of these. So the very first question is asking about AB and AE. I want to know if they're parallel, perpendicular, or skew. Well, you can already see my answer, but let's just double check and make sure that I'm right. So I'm looking at AB right here. I'm looking at AE, which is right here. Since this is a prism, that tells me that they are right angles right there. So that's why I decided to say that that was a perpendicular line. So those two are perpendicular to each other. Very next one, we have AB. So AB is right here again, and then CG is over here. Now, they're not intersecting, so that's knocking out perpendicular, but they're also not parallel. They're not going in the same direction, so that made me say that they were skewed. So they're never going to touch, they're not parallel to each other, so that makes them skew automatically. Very next one, we are looking at, what is it, EF and DH. So we have EF right here, and DH is right here. Now, on this picture, it might look like those two are crossing, but if we're thinking about that shape, those two corners are never actually going to touch each other, right? They're just running, one's running in one direction, one's running in the other, but they never actually cross. Like, that's not a corner. So for that reason, I called it skewed. Now, the next one, we are looking at AD and EH. So, let's find it. AD is right here. EH is right here. Okay, very first thing, do they intersect? No, so that knocks out perpendicular again. Are they going in the same direction though? To me, it looks like they are. They're both on the same side, they're not going to cross, so I'm going to call those parallel to each other. And then one last one, here we go. We have EH, so where's EH? We're looking at this top one again, and BC, so down over here. Okay, now these two aren't on the same side. But it doesn't look like they're going to cross ever. They're both running in that same direction. So that's the reason why I called them parallel. So they don't have to be on the same side to be parallel. It's just as long as they're going in that same exact directions, we can call that parallel. Let's try the next one. Okay, so We are looking for a segment that is parallel to RS. So first thing I want to know is where's RS? It's right there. I have a whole bunch of different things I could pick here. I'm looking for anything that's going in that same exact direction as RS. So the one that I picked automatically was just RT. But you might look at this and say, hey, there's some other choices. So let's take a look. I could have also said PQ, right? It's still going in that same direction. So is NO. All four of those are going in the same exact direction. So you could have picked any of those. Any of them are fine. I would accept all of them. The next one is a segment that is skewed to PN. So let's think about what skewed means again. Skew is they don't cross and they're not parallel. So very first thing, let's figure out where PN is. So it's right there. I want something that is not parallel but doesn't cross it. So I can't really pick anything on that left side. I can't pick anything on the top because those are all parallel or perpendicular. So I'm looking, I think this QU, doesn't that look like it's not going to cross? Like QU is going straight up and down, the other one's going sideways. So those are never going to cross each other. So I could have picked that. I had one other option. I'm going to give you a second, take a look, think about what it should be. If you said OS, you are correct. That one is also never crossing PN, and it's going in a completely opposite direction. So I could have called that one also skewed to PN. So let's try another one. My next one, I'm going to say a plane that is parallel to plane NRT. So NRT, first thing I need to know is where's that plane? It's the one that's over on the left side. So I want one that is running in the same direction and they are never going to cross. So that kind of takes out the top and the bottom because those cross. That takes out the front and the back because those cross. So that means my answer has to be over here, which is plane, what do I call it? QOS. Or we could have named it any other 3 points. So we could have named it QUS, SUO, or OUS, OSU. Any of those, they all work perfectly fine. The next one, we want 3 segments that are parallel to, which one? Parallel to PT. So first thing, I want to know where PT is. PT is right here. Let's think about what parallel means. Parallel just means that they're not going to intersect. So I'm looking, I want to go in the same direction. So one option I said was QU, because we already had that. Another one is OS because it's still going in that same direction of up and down. And the last one is NR. So basically we got just all 4 corners. So we're just saying all those going straight up and down are all parallel. They have to be. They're never going to cross each other. And then our next one we have says a plane that is parallel to plane PNO. So first I want to know where plane PNO is. So P&O is up on the top, right? Okay, there it is. Now I want one that's going in the same direction, so it's flat on top. I'm probably going to want the one that's flat on the bottom. So that's why I said plane TRS, because those two are never going to touch. They're across from each other on our shape. Very last one, we're almost there. Okay, so a line perpendicular to PT. Very first thing I want to know is where is PT? Same thing, it's right here again. A line perpendicular. So that means that they cross and they make 90-degree angles. And I know I have a prism. So that tells me that everything's crossing at 90-degree angles. So I said RT. I'm going to give you a couple seconds. I want you to try and figure out what the other one is because I think there's 2 or 3 more answers that I could have came up with. So take a second, try and come up with another one, and then we'll see if we got the same things. Okay, if you said TU, PQ, or NP, any of those would work. I would accept all those as correct answers. Okay, so we finished up those notes. Now, all I want you to do, work on the lesson check. If you're done with that, make sure you work on your Delta Math and do your discussion question. Have a good rest of your day.